I thought about it first. I'm like, this is either going to work or it's going to go down in a spiraling plane crash.
We had a coming to Jesus moment where I was like, hey, I love you so much, big time, but I cannot sign up for this for the rest of my life. Well, welcome to Thrive After Dark. This is real, raw, and all things truth between Justin and I. We will sometimes have guests. We may go live so that we can answer your questions live. But this is meant to be something that deglamorizes success, marriage, sex, relationships, parenthood, friendship, all the things we know that are real in our lives that social media has gone and done wrong on us. So in this episode, we talk about marriage, how it started, where we got to the point that we're at today, and everything in between, from the good, the bad, the ugly, the are we getting a divorce?
Not every episode is going to be about marriage. We just wanted to start here so you can have some context as to exactly where we came from.
All right, let's hit it.
All right, so first episode, where do we kick this thing off at? Where do we start?
Well, I think we should start with how we got to this point in our marriage. We met on Match.com. Shout out to Match.com.
Yeah.
You never contacted
never got
us.
A commercial.
We tried so hard. We even sent in an application for that.
But in hindsight, we sent it in when we were still engaged. We weren't even married yet. We just met and ended up getting engaged. And I think like 12 months into our relationship, we're like, where's our commercial?
Well, I mean, a year in, we're engaged. I feel like that's a success story.
We were engaged like month 9.
Month 9. It was month 9. Okay, so we meet on Match.com. Mm-hmm. Here's what actually happened. Ladies and gentlemen,
this is
buckle
before
up for this.
Online dating was normalized.
It was not cool. It was taboo. Like, I didn't tell a single person other than my family.
There was eHarmony if you were above a certain age.
Yes.
And then the only other option was Match.com.
For the more mature, you went to eHarmony. Mm-hmm. For the cool cats, you tried out Match.com.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we were obviously very cool. Listen, here, let's take them back to the ages we were. I was 26 years old on Match.com.
That's like younger than Ryan.
That's wild. Right. I was on Match.com. I was 26.
Why'd you have to say that?
That's wild. Okay. So I'm on Match.com. I'm young as hell, but because here's the deal. I was a single mom. I had a corporate America job and a second job.
Okay.
So I had 2 jobs, a child, and the only free time I had, I filled with an extracurricular. I was taking a Spanish class.
But we're going to get to that part of it later, right? So you actually got on Match.com for a different reason than me. So to set the real stage, we both had previously been in longer term relationships in which we were both engaged to other people.
That's a true story. Mm-hmm.
And neither one of those relationships worked out.
Crash and burn.
Complete dumpster fire. You actually went on there as more of a joke.
Okay, so my older middle sister is hilarious, and she was married at the time. She's still married. She was married then, and she's like, you should get on one of the dating sites. And I'm like, oh God, no.
One of the two.
I don't need to get on one of those dating sites. What the heck? And I also truly really liked being just single. My time was filled. I had 2 jobs.
You had your life dialed in.
Yeah,
sure.
it was locked and loaded. I was good. And she's like, no, listen. And she knows I love like a good, hilarious story. So she's like, here's what we'll do. The dates you go on, we're going to do it at the same restaurant, and you're going to be on the date. I'm going to pose as a server. And this was right when vlogs started taking off. Mm-hmm. Okay. Definitely dating us. And she's like, I'll video the whole thing and we're going to vlog about it. And it's going to be hilarious. And I was like, okay, I'm in. That's awesome. We're definitely, it's like undercover hilariousness. So I sign up. My pictures are out there. I write up a masterful profile, right? It was really good.
It was good.
It was good. It was all about recycling. It's all about treating the earth nice, my child nice, and being a good person in this world. Number one characteristic is funny. You popped up as a suggestion. Mm-hmm. Now, this was after I had gone on 2 dates.
Yep.
2 dates, same restaurant. Both young men were fine.
Not videotaped, though. You didn't fulfill the idea.
Yeah. So I go on these 2 dates. My sister freaking bails the first date. She never shows up. So at this point, I'm done. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm not interested in this. Obviously, this is not the avenue for me. I don't even need a guy in my life. I'm good. And as I go to my profile to really kind of shut it down, because you're paying for this thing, right? I'm in the first month as well. So thank goodness for that. I wasn't like all the way in. And I start scrolling and I see the most hilarious profile picture. This young, decent looking guy. Dashing, very...
Got your attention.
Darling looking man. But what got my attention, and that's probably why I'm using these words, because it wasn't your face that I was even looking at. You were wearing the most hysterical sweater. And I thought, you are either absolutely joking about this or this is real for you. And either way, I love that you chose it. It was a beige sweater, like a putty color, everybody. Down the center of it was Argyle pattern in brown.
Like this whole front area was all just brown, tan Argyle.
Brown on brown.
Which you love Argyle. Back then, you had an affinity for Argyle. That's what stood out. I liked
Argyle.
And then you also liked the fact that it was like kind of ironic because it was also a hoodie sweater.
I mean, I don't know if I liked Argyle. I thought it was hilarious that this young man was wearing an Argyle sweater with a hood on it and strings coming down. And I just thought, that's funny. And so I poked you. And that's how it all began.
I didn't want to do the bar dating scene. I was a cop in Detroit. I committed a lot of time and effort into that. I had no desire to be out there on the weekends, at night, all that stuff. I just didn't want to meet somebody that way. So I was like, you know what? I'll give it a shot. And I went also on a few disastrous dates. Some
a few good ones, too.
Yeah. I had actually, after probably, 3 or 4 months, somewhere around there, of being on that site, doing that whole routine, I was like, you know what, this is just not for me. It's not working. I wasn't there to find something casual.
Right. So you log in, you're about to quit the service.
I literally logged in to sign out of it and cancel my subscription and everything. And as the cursor moved across the screen, because as you mentioned, on Match.com back then, I don't know if you can still do it, you could poke somebody. Kind of you could wink at somebody.
Yes, it was a wink.
Like how you could poke somebody on Facebook, you could wink. So you could either wink at them or you could write them a direct message. And so as I'm scrolling across, the cursor's moving across the screen, it goes over this photo that literally just stopped me in my tracks. Like, here's this gorgeous brunette that is in a brown, looks like a bridesmaid dress.
It was a bridesmaid dress.
And I assumed that because you were holding, I think, flowers in the photo. And so I click on your profile, I start reading, and by the time I got to the end of it, I said to myself, well, either I'm being severely catfished and this woman's a dude or something like that, or not, and I have to know. I was like, what's the harm? I got to know. So I went ahead and wrote you an email. I don't even remember what I wrote, but it was enough to get a response from you. And we ended up literally writing emails back and forth for probably the next 3 weeks. We had eventually transitioned to text messages.
We go on our first date. So at this point, right, I'm done. Even though this is nice conversation, you seem intelligent, you're writing hilarious emails. I remember receiving your emails and reading them while I was on the job at GM and laughing in my cubicle, like laughing out loud, like, oh, this is, and if you know me, laughter is like the song of the universe. We went on a lunch date. So I'm like, I'm not committing another evening and getting a babysitter. We'll do a lunch break date. And we did it right there at Andiamo at the Rensen in Detroit.
You happened to have, because you weren't working at the Rensen, you worked at the Warren Tech Center, but you happened to be there. I think it was like a Tuesday.
Yep. I had a meeting.
And I was like, well, that's perfect. I'll just come meet you. However, just know I'm going to be working too. So I'm going to be in uniform. Is that okay? And you were like, yeah, no, that's totally fine.
So I'm walking towards Andiamo and I'm in, and I remember joking about like, well, I'm going to be in my work uniform. You'll be in yours. This is fine, right? I'm in my business casual or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm walking towards you, and you literally hold your arms out for like a hug.
Yeah, well, I didn't know what to do.
And you have
like,
a
oh my
full-on faux hawk going, which was awesome. Like full head of hair, faux hawk. You're in your police uniform. You've got your bulletproof vest on underneath it, so you look bigger. And I don't know what happened back in my day. So I was 26 at the time. I had a bit of a lead foot. It's gone away slightly, but I did get pulled over quite a bit between 20 years old and probably 25. 5 years full on of like unbelievable amounts of tickets. And something happened. And I know back then I wasn't really conscious of it, but I felt like, what? A cop?
It does. It's got to be unsettling. Like it definitely puts up a bit of a barrier there.
Yeah.
That's why I forewarned you.
And it wasn't as if I was scared of you, like scared of the police. But I think if you grow up like I did, where the police are there to serve and protect you, it's not like a friendly matter. It's not like, hey, copper, what up, dude? It's like, hello, Mr. Police Officer. I'm sorry that I messed up.
Right? It's literally a societal position that I'm in, and it's very hard to be able to get the real me.
Yes, it didn't feel casual.
So even if it's like the real me talking and I'm talking like this, if I'm in uniform.
You did talk. Let's get into that. So now we're sitting down. We're sitting down. We order our food, and I was nervous. Trained specifically in that year. I had taken 4 trainings on negotiation because I started to negotiate my contracts at GM. As we all know right now, like the best negotiator is asking questions, coming from curiosity, gathering as much data and information as possible. And I went right into like, tell me all about yourself, more questions upon what you just told me, and question after question. I cleaned my plate. Like there wasn't a streak of anything.
I know, I just talked and talked and talked.
And you did not even take a single bite, and you had to get a doggy bag. Mm-hmm. And we walked away from that meeting, and it was a meeting. I call it a meeting, right? Like it didn't feel like a date. Yeah. One, I think lunchtime at work, we already had put some filters in there that were not sexy at all. Mm-hmm. And you walked away, and I think, we joke all the time, right? Your phone call was like, met the girl of my dreams. My phone call was like, nice guy. I think we could be friends.
It's exactly what happened.
And then from there, it was like a series of Dear Johns.
We continued to kind of connect. It was more me reaching out. Like you said, I thought it went phenomenally well. I remember asking you like, hey, what's it going to take for me to be able to get another bit of time with you? Like, I really enjoyed our first time together. I have interest in getting to know you. What's it going to take? And your response was, you know what? I had a good time too. However, the only available time that I had was Monday afternoons, and I filled that with a adult Spanish class at Royal Oak High School about 4 weeks ago, and it's like a 10-week course. So unless you can figure out a way to get into there, I don't know how we're going to be able to find the time.
Which, of course, is asinine. Like, join my Spanish class. That it was so far-fetched.
It was like a rhetorical statement. Like, you weren't meaning.
And I was halfway through it too.
But all I heard was, if you can find a way to get into there.
That is all you heard.
And I'm like, challenge fucking accepted.
Yeah.
And I went ahead. I reached out, and I thought about it first. I'm like, this is either going to work, or it's going to go down in a spiraling plane crash. Mm-hmm. Because it was a risk, and I understood exactly what I was doing. I wasn't trying to. There was just something in me, and I can't even articulate or describe why it was there, because I've never experienced it before. Just told me I had to try. Like there was something drawing me or pulling me into the direction. And I know that if I didn't, I would probably regret it for the rest of my life. And
so you did try, and you got into that Spanish class, paid full.
Pleaded and cajoled to the point of annoyance with Royal Oak Board of Education. And they actually ended up letting me in. And I was like, I will pay the entire class.
Yep.
And they're like, well, do you know any Spanish? So I was like, sí. Knew nothing, like at all. And so they approved me, let me into the class. And the following Monday, which was only a few days later, I show up. I remember being so nervous. I literally had a backpack.
Yeah.
I got a notebook that I drew something on the front of it. I baked chocolate chip cookies to be able to bring it as a snack for you and I.
You had waters for both
and
of
waters
us.
for both of us. And I walked into class strapping a backpack.
You did. You looked
walked
like
through
a
the door. And I remember you looked up from the table or from your desk, because it's 2-person tables, and you were like, "Hi, what are you doing here?" I was like, "Hi." And I walked over. I was like, "I'm in this class." And you're like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "You said unless I can figure out a way to get in this class, I wasn't going to be able to see you. So here I am."
And then you proceeded to take the chocolate chip cookies out, the notebook with your hand drawings on it, and 2 waters. And you're like, "I got you. We're good to go for this class." And I was speechless. I was just like, I am processing all this going on right now. And your face was beet red.
Because the teacher
with
was
huge
so pissed.
smile. The teacher's just dagger eyeing you. And class starts. There's not a lot of time. It's not like we're sitting and shooting the shit. Class starts, and we all now are accustomed to, we have to say hello and say who we are. And she comes right for you, number one.
And
we have a new student here with
literally,
us.
if you're next to me, and I'll turn this way so I'm towards the camera. If you're next to me, teacher's up there, I'm just sitting here talking to you like this.
Yeah.
And she's calling my name, and I'm just ignoring her, talking to you because I'm only there for you. And finally, she gets pissed and gets more assertive.
She's like, "Please stand up, sir. Introduce yourself in Spanish."
I was like, "Oh, luckily I know this one." And I stood up and introduced myself. Me llamo Justin. And, it was a disaster. I didn't learn any Spanish while I was there at all. But the class finishes, and we end up going outside. And
no. You're not skipping over this part.
I did forget about that.
You sit down, and you're beet red, and
nervous.
I'm just looking at you because I'm embarrassed for you. I'm embarrassed for myself. I have no idea what's going on. And you start laughing, and full on snot comes out of your nose. Not a tiny bit, not clear snot, full on boogers out of your nose. And I'm like, hey, you have there's some snot there. And you're like, oh my God. It was a special moment. And then we went out to the parking lot afterwards, right? Class is done.
Yeah, I somehow recovered that.
Yeah.
And we were out in the parking lot talking, and now it was actually kind of flowing. We had a good time. We were having a little bit of fun and stuff. And we were talking about meeting up again. And in true cop fashion, I can't even help it. We were saying goodbye, and I was like, "Oh, hey, your plate's expired."
Oh my God. And it sounds so frivolous. He says, hey.
It was like an afterthought for me.
Your
plate's expired.
I had hugged him. This is okay, I actually think I like this guy. And I'll tell you why in a second, but I give you a hug, and you come out of that hug, and you're like, "Oh, by the way, your plate's expired." And gut wrenching, stomach turning. And I was like, "Oh my God, I'm in trouble. I'm so irresponsible. My plates have expired by 1 month, by the way. It wasn't 6, but I was so mortified. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to take care of that." And I went right into civilian. I'm
As
so
though
sorry,
I pulled you
Mr.
over.
Police officer. Yes.
Yep. No.
Yeah. And you're like, "It's okay. It's all right. It's not a big deal. Go take care of it though."
I remember going home being on cloud 9, just because I was like, I think this might actually work. I think that might have actually worked. I feel like I kind of reconnected that bridge, and you went home and you were telling your friends and family about it.
Yeah.
And what were they saying?
I called my best friend at the time on the way home, and I'm like, "You're never going to believe what the hell just happened to me at my Spanish
random
class.
Monday." Yeah.
Remember that guy? And I tell her all about you, and I'm like, "This is what happened." She's like, "Stalker, absolutely not. Change your phone number. Run. Break your lease that you're in. It's over." I called my next friend, who's a distant friend. I'm like, "Hey, so this is a situation." She's like, "Stalker, absolutely not, Jessica. Cops are crazy. This is the crazy mode. It's happening. Have you ever watched 2020? And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." Call my mom. My mom's like, I'm not sure. That's aggressive. And
easy, Jan.
Yeah.
Easy.
And that evening, I'm sitting in bed and I'm like, is there something wrong with me that I'm like, kind of like it? I respect the perseverance and the guts that it took, the courage that it took for you to show up and do the thing and like blow snot in my face.
There was no ill will. Like I wasn't trying to be.
Of course not. You took your shot.
I had to,
and that's what I felt. I felt that, and
Good.
I think that was an interesting segue into
and that
what
earned
is
me
now.
finally a real date, and that went great. And that was honestly the end. Like,
that was it.
Everything from there. It was
The rest is history.
Yeah.
9 months in, for whatever reason, this makes absolutely no sense. Don't ask me what came over me, but I had an agreement with myself, like a handshake with my own self, that at 9 months, and it was about 7-8 months in, that I'm like, if we don't know by 9 months in, we're full blown adults, right? I'm headed towards 30. I think you were almost 30, both in our careers. I had a child already. I'm like, I feel strongly if we don't know that each other are the one, I don't want to continue this.
It wasn't until Christmas that I actually appeared in either of your. And to give people some timeline here, we first met at the very end of August. We didn't actually have our first real date after all the school stuff and everything until probably early October.
Yeah.
I knew after Christmas, I was like, I really truly think that this woman's the one.
Well, so I had this agreement with self, like, hey, if by month 9 I don't feel like I want to marry this guy, I think I'm going to have a tough conversation. And if he doesn't feel the same way either, then it should be pretty easy, right, to part ways. And oddly, ironically, stars aligning, faith, it doesn't matter. Cosmically, month 9, you proposed. And I was blown away. It was the first vacation we had ever taken together to my favorite spot in this world. And you proposed to me where I was born, in the pool I learned how to swim in, a piece of my heart I don't share with many.
Yeah.
And now, today, we have 3 children, Jake, Juliana, and Joseph. So 20 years old, 10 years old, and 7. And we own a business together. You retired from your corporate career. I left my corporate career.
Nothing but smooth sailing all the way through.
It's been easy the whole time.
So simple.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not a single bump in the road.
None.
No.
No thoughts of leaving one another
Never.
or breaking the bond.
No.
Justin and I have very different views on marriage, and maybe similar now, but in the beginning, very different views on love and marriage. Like I'm much more logical about it, and Justin's...
You're more of a realist. I'm more of a traditionalist.
Yes. Yep. And it definitely made for some little ripples and waves in our life together, because I believe while in the beauty of marriage and the commitment of marriage, I'm very loyal to, I will show up to what I said I am going to do, but I am not shackled to the idea that because I said I do, that negates any trying, any action, any showing up for that commitment.
Yeah. It's not, the effort doesn't stop there.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Whereas I think once upon a time before, and maybe over time, you've shifted slightly, but you felt like, well, no, marriage is like, that ceremony is for life. Like that's it. We made a lifelong commitment to each other, and no matter what, it's like do or die,
Well, that part's true, except my belief on how that should carry out has changed completely.
Yeah.
I am much more in alignment with like, no, 2 lives going together in unison. They're on a trajectory, and both of them are constantly adjusting their path, and they need to adjust together in order to stay in alignment. Otherwise, it's not going to work. You'll eventually diverge and go off your separate directions. And you have to actively choose on a daily basis to do that. You have to actively, it's all about compromise and the commitment to the idea that I want to live this life with you.
Well, and I think what we're talking about is evolution of self, which then catapults or compounds evolution of relationship.
Right.
So I'm a firm believer in betterment and growth and evolving always, which then requires that I make an active choice to still choose you, right? And you still choose me, because if I'm ever evolving, ever changing, there's a new version of me to choose. I am not who I was at, well, how old was I when we got married? 28?
You were 28 when we got married.
Yeah. So when I was 28 to now, I'm a different woman. And so that requires that you still love this new person, or you fall back in love with this new person and still choose me. And likewise, like I require and need someone who wants to improve and strive for their best version at any given time. And so that requires an active choice to say, I like this new person. I want to be with this new person, or I'm interested in this new person, or this new way that you're thinking or doing. So along the way, that got tough. There were moments where, and I think this is real for a lot of people, where one party in the relationship is outgrowing or outpacing the other.
Yeah.
Very normal, very common.
Happens all the time.
Yeah. And then there is a definite strain on that relationship because one person has outpaced the other in growth and ideology and theories and thoughts and maturity, while the other is a little more complacent, and resentment can build. And we certainly dealt with that. And had some tough choices. So I think we can get real. Thrive After Dark is about being real and raw. And so there was 2 pivotal moments in our relationship thus far. We've been together 12 years, right?
No,
13?
We've been together 13. It'll be 14 next summer, 13 and a half.
Oh my gosh, it's so long. Okay, so we've been together for a while. And I personally, and maybe it's different for you, I don't think we've ever talked about it in a summary style. I feel like there was 2 pivotal moments in our relationship where if we did not consciously choose to lean in, keep trying, persevere, and find our way, which takes 2 active parties willing to do that and go there. Where I know those were moments, had we not done that, that may have ended in, hey, it's not working out.
I mean, we have had conversations in the past where that has been the contemplation. Like, should we do this? Like, should we continue on?
Keep doing this.
Or should we go ahead and decide to part ways? You know, it is a conscious decision that you have to make. And
it's not like it's on the table all the time. Like we're having a Wednesday dinner and I'm like, should we part ways? It's not.
I'm thinking about it right now. I mean, I don't know.
It's not like that, but it is. No. You hit moments, I feel, in our relationship,
like breaking
we've
points.
Experienced. Yes. Over time, it compounds. Little things start adding up, right? And then you hit a point where you realize, I'm unhappy. I feel complacent. It doesn't feel like a symbiotic relationship anymore. I'm either carrying you or we're going in separate directions. And I'm talking generically right now, not specifically. But for us specifically, I think what we dealt with was there was a moment in my career where my career path was forcing exponential growth of myself. And you were on a different career path. Still in the same industry, but you weren't doing the same things I was doing. I went into corporate real estate. And that was a pivotal moment for us where I realized, like, hey, I've evolved to a point where I'm realizing like where you're at and what you want out of life and how you're living isn't in alignment anymore with what I'm doing, what I want.
Right.
And I know you were feeling it too. And if you all haven't heard, Justin working for Detroit Police Department, he was there for 15 years. And they say working in Detroit is like dog years to a suburban cop.
Yeah, you work 1 year down there, it's like 5 to 10 in any other municipality. Like the exposure to things that people shouldn't be exposed to is pretty incredible. Like it's a lot.
Yeah. And it's like anything you watch on 2020 and every other, gruesome stories that you've watched in documentary style, like that was living, breathing work for you for day in and day out. And so you suffered from PTSD for quite some time.
Yeah.
And that affected our relationship in ways that I think are different than probably headline news stuff. It wasn't like he was spazzing out or, you know,
it wasn't
there was
psychotic
no abuse.
or losing my mind.
It wasn't anything like that. It was actually the opposite of that.
No emotion. Yeah.
Yeah, numb. And we would I coined it autopilot.
Yeah, you're on autopilot again.
You're on autopilot, and you could be talking to him, and he would literally say nothing to you, and I'd be like, "Hey, hello, are you hearing me?" And you're like, "Yeah."
Or you'd be like, so to give some context, to preserve my sanity in the environment that I was in, I had to learn how to shut my emotion off.
Right.
Because of the things I had to go through, experience, and see on literally a daily basis.
Right. And you're trained to do that. I mean, there's no way to survive what you would walk into on a daily basis and process it live in enough time to revisit it the next day.
If you experience those things I had to experience for that long of a time, or even a short period of time, as a normal, functioning, healthy human being, you lose your mind.
Right.
Completely. And so I had to learn how to adapt to my environment. And it wasn't even a conscious thing. And so let's say, for example, if something great was going on and it was a very happy, exciting time, everybody around me, the kids, everybody would be like boisterous, like, hey, this is amazing, all this stuff, and like really acting like a normal human being would. And you would look at me and be like, hey, like, are you happy? And be like, yeah. Like in the craziest part, it felt like being trapped inside of a bubble. Like the same thing you all were doing was going on in here and in here, but none of it would come out. None of it could translate coming out of my body or my mouth. Like none of it would actually happen.
And for someone like me, who's extremely passionate, and I told you at the beginning of this podcast, like laughter is like the song of the universe for me. To be in moments like that and look over at my husband and have him just be like halfway
literally
smiling
like a
with
half
his
smile.
With his mouth closed.
In my head, I'm doing backflips with excitement.
Right.
And I truly believe that's the way I was presenting.
Yeah. So it was tough for us. That was super hard. It affected every area of our life. And talk about the greatest lesson in patience. Yeah. That was it.
I consider myself really blessed to have somebody like you in that moment, because most people, I think, would have bowed out. I could only imagine how challenging that was going through, especially for somebody that is as connected and passionate as you are. You know, you thrive off of that human interaction, and to be providing that and connecting with you inside internally, but not at all externally. Like, I felt extremely guilty, and I know you felt extremely, I guess, let down is probably the best way to describe it.
Yeah, it was an interesting time. There was like a grieving cycle, because I think it was confusing when you first meet somebody, and this goes for all couples. You meet someone, and the psychology and the science of what happens in your body is you have this chemical reaction, which is very symbiotic to being high on cocaine. And it lasts, Justin and I learned, because we went to a couples therapist, that can last up to 9 months. Bingo.
Long enough to lock that in. That's right.
Just at the time where I was like, hell yes, let's do this for the rest of our lives. Right. And then it was like,
and then it really crashed after that.
Yeah, it did. And it took us a long time. We did a lot of therapy. There was...
I tried everything.
You did try everything.
I was on medications for years. I was, talking to psychologists, everything.
Yes.
And felt like I was grasping at straws at times. Like, just please something work. Yeah. Like, I felt trapped.
Yeah. And we made it through it. I think over time, your separation from DPD, not having to re-enter that environment day after day after day.
Yeah, because a lot of that actually did occur while I was still there. Right. Luckily, my last couple of years, I was no longer really on the street all that much. My last 2 years, I was at the academy as an instructor, so it was safe. And it allowed me to start moving away from it. But once I retired, my recovery kind of accelerated.
Yep. And so that was just patience, and learning how to understand that it's figure outable, but it's not immediate. And that was it was tough. It was hard because it didn't only affect me, it affected our kids, it affected our family, our family of origin. And we got through it. Over time, we just got through it because it was like thawing out almost.
Yeah.
But it took years. It wasn't a quick thaw.
No.
It was years and years. So, and then the second time, and we'll just quickly go over this one, the second time was around health. For me, I grew up in a family that ate wonderful food. My mom was is an incredible cook. We would have 4 to 5 course meals every night, and health was important. My parents have some ailments and illnesses that they acquired along the way of life. And I watched that affect their ability to enjoy life, from anything from chronic fatigue syndrome to arthritis to COPD to like severe asthma, where my dad was literally not breathing, and ambulances in the driveway.
So many steroids to keep breathing normal that it's impacting him, emotionally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My mom has epilepsy, and so she would go through bouts of seizures, and there was just a lot of things that were out of our control health-wise that I think impacted me to the core, that I didn't really understand until I became a full adult and was taking care of my own child. And there was a point in our relationship where you didn't score health at the rate that I did. Your health score was much lower than my health score. And over time, it started to clash. And I hit a point where I realized, okay, this is a non-negotiable for me. I didn't realize it, but now I understand. Like, I love you dearly, deeply, and it doesn't change that, but I can't live this way.
We refer to those as my boring accountant years.
We do. We look back at those photos and I'm like, there's my
There's
science
like one
teacher
photo out there that will never resurface because I don't.
No, I'm giving it to Ryan for this podcast.
Where I was like, just.
It looks sickly.
Yeah, and I was wearing glasses.
Muscle on you, and you're so white.
So white. Why'd you say it like that?
Wearing glasses.
Yeah, it was. It's not a flattering photo.
Yeah, and this happens to all of us. I mean, we all joke around a lot about my pregnancy days, and I definitely, when I'm pregnant, just let go. I like Jesus, take the wheel kind of situation.
Seeing how many pounds we can pack on here.
Got 9 months of fun. Let's do it. So you were just completely off the reservation of health. And I got to a point after a couple, maybe 3 years of that, where I realized this is a core belief of mine. Like it's not about being bodybuilders or swimsuit models.
It's not about having a 6-pack, 8-pack, whatever. It's about being physically healthy.
Yeah, being able to run around and jump up and down and have great sex and, live long and prevent illness, because so much is out of our control. So we had a coming to Jesus moment where I was like, hey, I love you so much, big time, but I cannot sign up for this for the rest of my life. And that was it. That was a moment in 2019. And I remember it because we were in our gym garage and it was days long conversation. I don't even know. It might have been months, to be honest. And we were at the moment of like finality where
it's not like you gave me an ultimatum, like get in shape or else.
Yeah, no.
It was just clearly stating exactly like you said, like, hey, I love you. And, I need more out of a partner if we're doing this for the rest of the time.
Yeah.
Like our beliefs around that aren't in alignment. And it caused me to make a choice. Like I had to make a choice. Where it really ramped up into overdrive was when
we hired a trainer.
Yes, but you ended up, this is farther down the road. That's why I'm thinking it was 2020 is because you got your concussion. Something went into overdrive with me. And I'm like, I need to accelerate this getting into shape. because I need to pick up the slack because she needs to be able to rest. And you literally were bedridden for like a month after that. It was a bad concussion. Yeah. And I remember I put a chart out in our garage. I was on a treadmill every day. I was working out every day, and that was the start.
So how did we overcome all of this? I think it was just simply a lot of conversation, and some of it was fighting, and some of it was
very uncomfortable,
brawling, and some of it was just silence and knowing that your life partner is sad or upset or disgruntled, and really wanting that to change and putting forth an effort of saying, okay, what do I personally, that extreme ownership piece, what do I personally need to do to change this outcome? I remember when I first met you, you talked a lot about like, God, we're just so busy all the time. We're busy, busy, busy. And I was like, busy is the baseline, baby. Like, that's it. That's my life. I move fast, and this is the kind of life I like to live. Like, we've got a lot going on, and I would be so sad if we didn't. Like, what a blessing. And with all of that said, what I did need to learn within that pushback of like, yeah, whatever, but this is my life, and your push of like, yeah, I get that, and calm down. Like, we don't need to be cleaning out the baseboards, every Tuesday.
We were literally watching a movie one time. This was in the beginning of our relationship. Yeah. On the couch at your house watching a movie, and you get up in the middle of the movie and go start cleaning the corner of the room because you noticed a little dust bunny there that had formed.
Yes. So I have learned to let things go, and realizing that more profound moments of spending time with people or doing absolutely nothing is just as impactful as the busy baseline.
Well, and that took you a long time to learn.
Very long time.
And honestly, you had been delivered that request over and over and over for years until finally in 2020, the world said, we're going to do it for you. And that's when you got your concussion. Yeah. And you were forced to slow down for months.
Yeah. I remember calling our coach at the time, John Cheplick, and being like, I got a concussion. Like, I can't look at screens. I can't go into the office. I can't drive. I can't even stand up straight. This is pretty serious. And I feel crazy because he can't see it. And I've seen every doctor. I've literally lined up everything I could, every modality you can think of, from modern medicine to holistic. And I'm not getting better, man. And he was like, well, when you ask for more and the universe delivers, you can't then critique how it was done. He was like, this is a lesson in slowing down. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. And it was a great lesson in finding peace and happiness in the quiet.
Yeah. And how you eventually recovered was through slowing down through yoga.
Yeah.
Doing headstands.
Yeah.
And just really...
I know, that seems so crazy to say. Like, you have a concussion, I'm doing headstands for a year. Yeah. But it was the only way where I couldn't think about modern thoughts. All I could think about was balance. And that slowed me down. Yeah.
Because we were prepared for the worst. We were preparing for this to be a lifelong debilitation.
Well, I mean, that's what they told me.
Yeah.
And I was like, F that noise.
Right.
So I think when I look at these pivotal moments for us, and it didn't happen overnight where we worked through it, and there were certainly moments of disparity in there. I know personally for me, and maybe you can answer this for anybody listening from a man's point of view, but from my point of view, the reasoning behind working through it was really around my principles and values, and reckoning with the understanding that the alternative, if I were to walk away from you in the hard, because that's what we were in, knowing we're aligned, our principles and values are aligned. I know you care about health. You just weren't doing the actions of health. And I know that is hard for a lot of people. And it doesn't mean they don't care about it. They just really struggle with the discipline that it requires for human beings. And it wasn't that you didn't, our other struggle was the emotions and the numbness. It wasn't that you weren't striving greatly to express how you feel and that you care. It was that you literally physically could not get it out. And I could see how maddening it was for you. So again, like our principles and values were aligned. And I think that is something that I'm proud of when I look back at our choice to get married, our choice to be in life together. It was all surrounding the fact that these core principles and values were in alignment. And it doesn't mean that every day, every week, every month, we always make the right choice around them. But when it comes down to it, those core things are in alignment. And it's just about getting back there. And it was truly, for me, it was a weighing of, do I trust that? Do I trust that in you? Do I trust that I've got the patience and the compromise in me to wait or to do it differently, right? And I think if you know me, I'm a bit stubborn and I like to do things at a level that is high. And so that is difficult for me to do. And I think that's, for me personally, that's what it all came down to, is realizing like, I'm not getting duped here. He's not trying to hurt me or hurt us. It's just a matter of how do we work through this? And that is one thing I can say I do trust emphatically about you, is your willingness.
There's a lot of things I'm not great at. There are plenty of things that I am. When we reach a point where something that I'm not great at is the problem or the challenge in our relationship, I could have 10,000 options on which direction I could go. And that's obviously an exaggerated number for a reason. The last one on that list would be choosing to walk away. Like, I would never be able to do that with you or our family unless I've checked off every box.
Right.
Because I am 110% committed and I'm willing to do just about anything that it takes to show up in the role that I've committed to, you know, which is as a husband, as a father, and as a life partner to you. And I don't care what comes our way. Like, the last choice on the list will always be, and the list could be 2 things long.
Right.
It could be this changes or I'm out, or it could be literally 10,000 things, but the last thing on the list every single time is going to be exiting.
I think one thing I found in people that have talked to me about their marriages and struggles within their marriage, and I'm fortunate to have people that trust me with that conversation, there is a difference between I love you and this is not right. Our core values, principles, priorities do not align. Mm-hmm. You can still love somebody and have that be true and still walk away. Like, it has nothing to do with love.
Well, that's just that divergence I was talking about with 2 people growing. If they're not adjusting their path to continue to grow together, they'll eventually grow apart. It doesn't mean that they can't and don't love each other. Mm-hmm. It just means that their lives are no longer in alignment. They're too far apart.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's fair. And I think sometimes we glamorize marriage a little bit too much and glamorize the day we said I do a little bit too much.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple. Like, if you do not align on these core things, chances of the longevity of that relationship being forever are slim.
I also think there's a lot of people that are very frivolous with the commitment of marriage out there. You know, I see people all the time. They'll get married and 6 months later, you know, we knew somebody at one point that we employed. This was way back in the day. This is not in our professional capacity now, that literally had a $50,000 wedding and less than 90 days later was divorced. Mm-hmm. You know, our society, unfortunately, is devaluing what marriage should be. And I'm not in alignment with that. Like, I believe if I've chosen you, you've chosen me, I'm going to commit to that ideal until there is no other choice, until my heart says, no, I shouldn't anymore.
Yeah. Okay, so if anybody has any questions, Thrive After Dark is meant to be real, raw, and all about truth. And so please comment down below, ask us anything that you've got on your mind, DM us about it, and we will make sure on the next episode that we answer you first.
Yeah, we just gave you a really broad overview of kind of 13 plus year snapshot of what our life has been. But there are so many details, so many stories, so many nuances to our life together, both good, bad, ugly, happy, sad, all and everything in between. And, you know, we're happy to share everything we've learned, the lessons we've learned, the things we've experienced all along the way. If you just simply make a comment and ask.